Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. Now, I hope you're having an amazing day. And before we get started, I just want you to know that we're only going to look at the technical charts here for QNT. And the whole purpose is to just kind of gain better perspective on best practice to help you find a good entry point and learn something along the way. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research. I just have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help you become a better trader, right? Now, I'm going to be working and releasing a signal group here soon. I'm working on that diligently for my community. I've got a lot of requests for it. So just know that I will have that here in the near future to ensure that you can get the best advice and the best signals possible moving forward in this strange climate. And so that'll be coming out here soon. So I appreciate your patience on that. And thank you to my community for requesting that I cover QNT. Last but not least, I have $25 in Bitcoin available from Voyager, link in the description below, as well as a link to my Patreon account if you'd like to show your support. I will have my premium membership moving forward very, very soon with that. And of course, my wonderful Telegram community. Thank you all so much for requesting I cover this and just your continued support. They're all very awesome, and I really greatly appreciate you. Link in the description below for that as well if you'd like to join my Telegram community. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at QNT. And before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, just kind of get a baseline of what's going on. And we'll take a quick peek at Ichimoku and Town to Mark sequential. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So first things first is Bitcoin. I use the 4-hour chart. That is my favorite chart to use, just based on the overall sentiment. The moving averages work the best. And I have the 200-day moving average, this purple line here, and the yellow line is essentially the 50-day moving average. And just to note, we do have the Ichimoku cloud in the background there. That is this red and green. Basically, if the price is over the cloud, it's a buy signal. If the price is under, it's a sell signal. All right, that's kind of the simple concept there. I can dive deeper into that a little bit later. But for right now, this is essentially what we're looking at for Bitcoin. So now keep in mind, I drew this little line here, first of all, this diagonal line, because it kind of shows that there's a major declining resistance level. So there's a possibility it's going to work itself into a wedge pattern and drive the price down a little further. Hard to say specifically, but that is essentially the case there, and the price is currently under the 50-day moving average. So something drew the price down recently, and of course we have the price under there for the last 24 hours. No surprise there, the 200-day moving average is working its way down as well. We'll see what happens with that soon. So that is the state of the nation for Bitcoin. Moving on to Ethereum. Very similar scenario here in a lot of ways, only the price is much lower. And for some strange reason, most all the altcoins right now are doing very poorly. It's not really strange, but it's odd that it's happening the way that it is, because usually Ethereum is doing very well. Usually the ADAs, the Cardanos, the VETs, those are all ones that ramp back up quickly when Bitcoin goes sideways. Bitcoin's been going sideways for some time now, and we're seeing the same type of action from Ethereum. So it's a little alarming for me, kind of, normally Ethereum should be much higher, but just keep in mind that is kind of the case right now. And I'll mark this here again, I cleared it earlier, looking at about 2,900 for a major resistance level, and currently as far as support, it's in this range here, somewhere between 18.5 and about 2,100, because there's a primary and secondary support level there. But at this point, we're kind of right here in the middle for Ethereum, so there's no buy signal right now at this point based on the cloud. All right, let's move on to Quant. Now, Quant is an interesting one here. First of all, we're going to look at the one-day chart, and just note that and again, based on this is on KuCoin, by the way, this is a KuCoin network. So it looks like February 7th was either their ICO or just initial offering on this exchange. But that is essentially how long it's been here for this this chart. And if we look at the current scenario, the state of the nation here, it's not phenomenal, right? We're looking at kind of one of those situations where I don't see a lot of decline. So the price is actually in pretty good shape. It obviously ramped up here recently. We got a good, how many percent is that? The last 4 days, we've gone up about 33%. It's pretty significant considering the fact that Bitcoin's been doing poorly overall, right? It's pretty much going sideways, and that's kind of what we're looking at there. So let me go ahead and add this here, change this. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, this moving average isn't indicating right the 200 because there's not enough data, not enough time to essentially provide that. So we don't see a 200-day moving average, but the 50, the price is working above the 50 at this point. So all in all, looking pretty decent, and the price is above the cloud as well. So that does imply that we're still in bullish territory. But just keep in mind, RSI creeping up a little bit. We might see a retracement, but we'll identify that on shorter time frames. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So for Quant, let's take a look here first at the 4-hour chart. And if you're new to the channel, the 4-hour chart really helps us the most with the moving averages. In other words, the 200, this purple line here, and the 50 is this yellow line. Those are essentially the moving averages, and they work very well in the 4-hour chart, the simple moving average. I use the exponential on shorter time frames, but in this scenario here, we can see they're both working as support levels, as well as the fact that the RSI is fairly extended. It is pretty high right now, so oftentimes when that happens, the price could come back down. It's not a guarantee, of course, but I would venture to guess that Quant will probably go sideways for a little bit longer because it did have a decent amount of price action in the past couple of days. And it's hard to really say specifically what the catalyst is here, but it's obviously doing very well outside of Bitcoin. So perhaps there's some fundamentals. If you have insight, comment below. We'll go ahead and check that out. But all in all, you can kind of see a similar trend here. I mean, if you look from before, it's done. I'm not sure what happened here. In fact, it's interesting because you see the price come up and hiked right up. That was what, May 12th. Oh, you know what? That is interesting. May 12th was an Elon candle for Bitcoin. We got a major sell-off on May 12th. So perhaps that could be, I wouldn't say that's the catalyst per se, but it does appear that this does very well when Bitcoin drops. So what, the 18th was the second. That was the second major. So it ramped up on the 18th as well, right here in this range. And it did eventually sell off, of course, the retracement, because that was such a high amount of movement in such a short amount of time that it's common for retracements to happen that way. They usually cut about 50% of the difference. But the bottom line here is that, Elon candle, China candle, it's done very well in response to these sell-offs. So it might be something to consider. Perhaps this is like an inverse pair, if there is such a thing, that essentially allows the price action to respond adversely to to Bitcoin. So I found it to be very interesting and quite cool in a lot of ways. So that could be a factor there. Just keep that in mind. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at just the 1 hour really quick to identify, because the 1 hour chart is the best chart to use for the Ichimoku. Or correction, I always call it Ochi, it's Ichimoku. And this cloud here essentially tells us that we have a buy signal. So the general rule of thumb here, and I turn off all the other indicators just to make it simple. I don't want to confuse you with all the extra indicators. I do use those on other time frames, of course. For example, you can utilize these. They kind of give you good sell signals and buy signals. Do your own research if you're going to use this, but the best concept, is to use the cloud as kind of a baseline, because it gives you just kind of a quick overview here. In other words, when we look at the cloud, when the price is above the cloud, that's essentially a buy signal, or essentially just means that it's good, it's okay to go long in that scenario. When it's below, it's essentially a sell signal, so you want to essentially short. But if it's ever within the cloud, that's a time in which you do not make a purchase, you do not invest, because within the cloud is essentially a no buy zone, right? As you can kind of see here, it shoots up and above or below. It never truly hangs out in that zone. Of course, it does sometimes, but it's less frequent, and that's just something to be mindful of. So Ichimoku, however you want to call it, I know I'm mispronouncing it, is a good indicator on the 1 hour chart. That's the best time frame to utilize that. All right, so let's go ahead and just take a look at the 15-minute now. And let's see what's going on here. Now, I use, on the 15-minute chart, I use the volume weight average price, which is the green, the blue line here in the center. In fact, let me make that just a little bit darker for you so you can kind of see the line a little better. All right, so there you go. This blue line here is essentially the volume weight average price line. So when the price is above, it's considered to be a support level. When the price is below, it's considered a resistance. Okay, so that's the general concept there. And you also have these standard deviation lines above and below this little area here. And as soon as it comes above, then it's considered either a sell signal, or just more importantly, you want to keep a closer eye on it, because once it comes back down, it will retrace itself. But as you can see, the price is doing very well. It's right above the EMA line here, this red line, and it's really helping us understand more specifically that the bulls are in control, at least in that scenario. Whereas right now, it appears the bears are in control because the price action is moving down underneath the EMA line. And that's the EMA 15, by the way. So I use the EMA 15 myself. That's the exponential moving average. I feel that the EMA lines work better on shorter time frames. That's why I choose to use them on the 15-minute or less, because they respond quicker to the price action, and that's what you need on shorter time frames. So don't use the SMA lines on the really small time frames, 15 minutes or less. Use those on the 4-hour charts or higher. That being said, with the price action currently right now, obviously we're seeing a state of retracement and the fact that it's likely to essentially come back down, at least for a short while, because in fact, let's see if we can mark some previous highs here. Yeah, there we go, no surprise. So if we look back here, what is that? Back in May, we've had a few times where the price comes all the way up to about $54 as a round number, and then it rejects. Now, right now, it's kind of doing something similar. Okay, so it came up here, rejected, broke above, but now it's retracing itself back down. When that happens, it does mean that we do create a new new resistance level, roughly at about 55, but that this is also still a secondary resistance, right at about 54. So just be mindful of that. If the price comes back up and tests that line, it could break above and test 55 again. And so kind of what we're hoping for, actually. But that's kind of generally what we're looking at here for Quant and, or is it Quant? I'm not sure. I'm good at mispronouncing things here today, so don't trust me on that. QNT is essentially what we're looking at here. And again, thank you to my community for reaching out and asking me to cover this. I get all sorts of unique coins from my community, and I'm referring to my Telegram community, my Patreon account as well. I have a good group of folks there showing their support. Thank you so much. And this is one of the requests here, of course. So that's the main reason we're covering it. And then we'll just go ahead and take a look at the 1-minute chart too. And another thing to note as well, coins like this have a lot lower volume. As you can tell, we have lower volume. That's why you see these kind of gaps and the strange candlesticks, just based on the fact that you can see this volume is kind of sporadic. So be mindful of that when you invest in coins like this. It does have a tendency of being less volatile, so getting in and out is tougher. Sometimes you can have the bid-ask spread can be much larger. So if you're, make sure you set a stop limit, or sorry, do a limit order if and when you enter and exit, because it might be difficult to get filled depending on, again, the volume. Overall, I can say though, if you look at the 4-hour chart, we have had more volume now recently than in the last week or two. So it's definitely picking back up. But looking at the 1-minute chart, not much to disseminate here because of the fact that the EMA lines, see how much it responds to this price action? It's almost sticking with it. It's hard to get a good gauge on it. So that's why I like to use the 15-minute chart, because it gives us more of a blended average, kind of a better understanding of where the EMA lines are holding. Because normally when you look at a traditional, like a 1-minute chart, the EMA line would either stay below or stay above. It'll waver in between, but this is staying almost identical with the price action. It's because there's not a lot of volume, not a lot of movement. So that being said, just again, be mindful of that. You probably don't see that too often, but with smaller coins with less volume comes less volatility, and it can be harder to get in and out. But again, you'll get inaccurate readings on the EMA lines because of that. So that's why I choose to use the 15, and you can kind of see here if you look closer that the price was bullish here above, came up to basically test and break the previous resistance at $54, and then broke up below essentially. So it didn't hold. It was only above for an hour to maybe 2. So if you look at the 4-hour chart, it just basically break above for a moment and come back down. And now we're below. So now that we're under the EMA line, that is a case in point where we want to wait for the price action to come above. And for me, when I take entry, again, some people might scoff at this because they like larger gains, but me personally, I wait for the price action to be above the EMA line on the 15-minute chart for no less than 2 solid green bars. So in a perfect world, we're going to see this price action come above, right? So just say EMA continues like this, for example, and the price comes up. We want to see 2 solid green bars above the EMA line and holding. That gives me an indication that we're moving in somewhat of a bullish trend. Now again, it's no guarantee, of course. But if you look back here, for example, you see we got 2 green bars above VWAP and EMA, and then 2 more above VWAP and EMA, and it continued upwards. right? So again, that's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, but I can tell you that you're more likely to find a trend going in the direction you want it to head, again, upwards, if you kind of honor that code. If you get in too early, it could reverse on you and you might be out. And that's not to say that's a problem either, because it could eventually reverse. But again, I prefer to go with the trend. The trend is your friend. And that's the reason why I kind of have this as a baseline for me before taking entry. You always want to take entry above the VWAP and the EMA lines, right? Just because you know, again, the price is moving the direction you're trying to head. If you're shorting, the inverse would apply. You would essentially do the same thing for two solid red bars underneath the EMA and the VWAP lines. All right, so that is essentially what you're looking at here. So again, I guess to summarize with my prediction here, while we just go ahead and go back here to the 4-hour chart. I mean, considering the fact that it's done well, it did well back here from May 12th to the May 18th, which is uniquely enough the most difficult time for Bitcoin. I would say, based on its price action, the fact that it's kind of an inverse, coin, I would not be surprised if QNT performs well as Bitcoin continues to go sideways. So I guess you could say my prediction would be for the true range to kind of stay where it's at. It would probably stay in the $50 to $60 range. I don't believe it's going to blast out up to 65 again. I think that was kind of an anomaly based on the kind of a knee-jerk action to what had happened previously. So if we get another Elon tweet, perhaps we might be lucky, right? You never truly know with this, but based on its history, it has a tendency of ramping up and retracing. So we should see retracement soon, probably come back down and test the cloud, and then to perhaps ramp back up when Bitcoin goes sideways again. All right, so hopefully you found benefit from this. If you do, like and subscribe. Also note too, if I haven't mentioned this already, I do have a premium Patreon account that I'm working on for a Signal group. So I'm creating a Signal group to ensure that I can help my subscribers, because I get a lot of requests for that, and I'm going to make sure to do that. It does take a lot of time and effort to put that together. So I appreciate your patience, but when I have that up and running, hopefully be able to give you some really positive signals, some good buy indications there, and that'll be available through Telegram as an active premium Patreon member. All right, so heads up on that. And I also, moving forward as well, plan to do a lot more live streams. You'll see those on the weekends moving forward, and we'll see what happens. So thanks again for all that you do. You're all very awesome. Appreciate your support. Love and appreciate you. We'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.